Barbershop Talk brought to you by Haviland Express Lube of Kernersville. Their service facility is independently owned and operated by Mac Allen, providing full-service repair and maintenance services that use the latest diagnostic equipment to guarantee your vehicle is repaired or serviced properly and in a timely fashion. Mac and his team pride themselves on commitment to the local community and providing value-driven service in an inviting, friendly environment. Go see Mac at Haviland Express Lube of Kernersville for all of your automotive maintenance needs. This is The Rundown. I am your host, Desmond Johnson. Johnny O, Rod Funderburk in the house. Haskell Shelton will be driving by here in about 30 minutes. Intern Aaron and Sawyer Dillon in the house in the control room. 336-777-1600 is the number to call, or hit us up on Twitter at Sports Hub Triad. We will get to our poll results here in a little bit, probably after this segment's done. Let me paint this picture for you guys, and then we'll kind of get into this. So you guys know I am UNCG alumni. I am Spartan Pride, graduated 2003.
Go Spartans.
They are 28-6 on the season with losses at Kentucky and at LSU, two teams that will be probably either 1 or 2 seeds in the tourney. Although LSU losing to Tennessee or to who did LSU? Florida yesterday might have knocked them off the 2 line. So we'll find out tomorrow about that. UNCG is ranked 60th in the NCAA's net rankings. Their biggest win is against Furman in the SoCon tourney last week and against East Tennessee State, both teams that are in their conference. The SoCon is ranked as the 10th toughest conference in the country. Currently, ESPN's Joe Lunardi has the Spartans in the next 4 out, primarily due to a lack of big wins and a strength of schedule that ranks in the 100s. Meanwhile, NC State from the ACC is 22-11. They finished at 500 in the ACC, which is considered the toughest conference in the country. They have wins over solid March teams like Auburn and Syracuse, but they also have horrible losses to Wake Forest. They scored 24 points in regulation in a loss to Virginia Tech, and then the very next game allowed 113 points in the next game to UNC. State is currently showing as the last 4 in. 2 years ago, UNCG beat NC State. NC State will more than likely get into the dance. UNCG will more than likely not make it. Should the NCAA look at expanding the tournament field beyond 68 teams to allow teams like UNCG a chance, or are there too many teams in the field already? And I will dump that in your laps to dissect and discuss.
Well, I'll just say real quick, 68 teams, it's such a great tournament. They already expanded it, 4?
Yeah.
It used to be 64 or whatever. Well, way back when it was 32.
Right.
I don't know if I want more teams in. This is the fun of this whole tournament. Should UNCG be in? Should this happen? Should that? And I know when they get left out, because as a Syracuse fan, we've been left out a couple times that we thought we should have been in. I say keep it at 68, and I do love the mid-majors though, and I would love to see UNCG get in, but the way they look at it. These top 5 conferences are so good, and so in NC State, at 9-9, I've always said in my head, if you go 500 in the ACC during the season, you should probably be in the tournament.
That's kind of been the general gist of what people have been thinking. If you get to 500, then you're probably going to get in.
But then you mentioned he scored 24 points in one game. I still can't even.
That was at PNC. That was at home in Raleigh. They scored 24 points against Virginia Tech.
That is nuts. I'll never forget that because I was out on a golf course and I was checking my app to see what the score was, and I just figured my app wasn't working. It wasn't downloading or something.
Yeah, that was over Super Bowl weekend. I remember that.
Yeah.
And then the very next game, they let the Tar Heels run 113 points on them. So that just.
But that was the Tar Heels. You can understand that.
Yeah.
But let's look at some of this history. And Johnny, you mentioned it just a little bit before. Back in 1937, for the listeners who don't know this, there were only 8 teams that actually competed in the NCAA tournament. Okay. So then, as the years went along, we went to 1939, and it grew to 16 teams. And then from 1951 to 1952, it grew from 22 to 25 teams. And then in 1974, 75 is when it went to 64 teams. 32 teams in 75, 64, and then in 85 is when it grew to 64 teams. And then just recently, 2011, we went to 68 teams.
And that 32 team, when it was 32 teams, you had to win your conference
That's what I'm saying.
tournament
It was
to
all
get
the
in.
conference champions.
Period.
That's
Period. And that's kind of cool. I mean,
I like that.
Yeah.
That's
I definitely
crazy.
like that. And
That's how you get some teams in the early '80s in the ACC that didn't even get, like Virginia. There was a couple times where they lost in the ACC final.
Absolutely.
Maryland.
Yeah.
There was some Duke teams, some Carolina teams.
Yeah.
You talk about
Yeah.
you talk about fighting to get into a tournament. That's
Yes, sir.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
But then the NCAA said they started seeing dollar signs, and they
That's
said, "Wait
usually
a
the key.
minute." So go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine, but that is usually the key, those dollar signs. And my thing is, I look at it kind of like football. How many times during the football season have we seen an undefeated TCU team be right there at number 6 or number 7? And the question goes back to, well, who did you play?
Right.
Who was on your schedule?
Who did you play?
Who did you beat? You know what I mean? So don't get me wrong. UNCG, I think they've had a great season. They have done great. But are they going to be one of the teams in the Final Four?
No.
I mean, so if they're not and you're left out, maybe you have a better chance to win an NIT. Which, by the way,
Which would be great. For the
yes, it
program.
would be great. And which, I don't know whether or not you guys knew this, the NIT was the forerunner of the NCAA
sure was.
tournament.
Yep.
The NCAA tournament used to take a back seat
I
to the
know.
NIT.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
That's
So
actually the only time Carolina and
Yeah.
Duke have met in the postseason was in the NIT.
That's
And
right.
and those years were in the '60s, I think, right? And when the NIT was the big tournament.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I know that's whenever I hear that, and they'll bring that up once in a while. That is.
Yeah, because they always used to play at Madison Square Garden in New York. You're right.
So I'm looking at Joe Lunardi's bracketology on ESPN, and I chose to go to Joe Lunardi because more often than not, regardless if you like him or not, he's right. He had a year where he picked all 68 teams correctly. So I'm not going to go to Jerry Palm or any of these other guys that've got random brackets out that have UNCG in them just because UNCG is in there. I'm looking at his because his is the most accurate, and it has been for years. His last 4 byes are Oklahoma, Arizona State, Florida, and Ohio State. Florida was on the bubble and moved up into those last 4 byes, so they're in there. Ohio State won yesterday. They moved up. They're in there.
Yeah.
The last 4 in, he has his Temple, St. John's, NC State, and TCU.
I'm okay with that.
I'm okay with that, too.
Especially St. John's.
Yeah,
St.
especially
John's
St.
is
John's.
a pretty good team, man.
First 4 out, he has Belmont, Texas, Indiana, and Alabama. Indiana is an interesting case because they're like,
18 and 16.
something like that. Yeah,
but
they swept Michigan State.
some big wins.
Yeah, they got some big wins, but I don't think they deserve to be in. Like, if they get in, I think they would have the most losses of any at-large team. They'd have like 15 losses or something.
And they
crazy.
got beat in the tournament early in the tournament.
Yeah.
They needed at least a win or 2 in there. I guess.
Belmont's interesting, and
Well,
Belmont's
again, you
the
said
first
they beat
mid-major.
Michigan State,
They
too,
they swept Michigan State. They
Yeah.
beat them twice. Belmont is in the first 4 out, and they're the first mid-major that pops up there, and they're ahead of UNCG on this. His next 4 outs where UNCG pops up: Clemson, Lipscomb, UNC Greensboro, and Furman. So here's my thing. And again, I am Spartan alumni. Jay Billis made an excellent point last night on the broadcast for Carolina and Duke, where he was talking about bubble teams, and he was saying, once you're on the bubble, if you don't have any more games to play, you don't go up on the bubble. Like you won't find a team that gets elevated after their games are done. Usually you go down because other teams are playing and they're pushing you downward, and that's kind of what's happening here. Because I thought 2 days ago UNC Greensboro was like the first out of the next 4 out, and now Clemson is there, and now Lipscomb is there, and Clemson lost that game to NC State in the quarterfinals of the ACC tournament, and Clemson beat Syracuse. Clemson's got a couple of wins too, but I don't think Clemson deserved to go.
Yeah, I don't think they deserve
I don't
to
think
go
NC
either.
State deserves to go, to be honest. But it looks
But
like they
it's a
might get in.
weak field this year. It really is. There's
Yeah.
some, like the Pac-12 is only going to get 2 teams, and now the SEC's getting like 8 teams.
I'm looking. Yeah, he's got a rundown of like conferences too. Big Ten, he's got 8. ACC, 8. Who the 8 for the ACC that he's got going in here? Hold on.
Everybody but Clemson.
Virginia, Carolina, Duke, Florida State, Virginia Tech, Syracuse, Louisville, NC State.
Yeah.
That sounds right. I mean, that sounds right. And Clemson's the cutoff. After that, you get the Georgia Tech, Boston College, and all that kind of stuff.
And although NC State had one of the worst schedules or lightest schedules, if not the lightest schedule this year,
They had the lowest ranked non-conference strength of schedule.
Exactly, their schedule was the lightest non-conference.
Yeah.
And but if you look at their record on paper looks pretty good.
Yeah,
They're like 22 and something.
In 11, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah, which looks fairly decent. Which put them at I think the number 33 team in the bracket.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
I did
so-
see that.
yeah,
they're up
yeah.
there.
Our buddy,
They are up there.
our
Right.
buddy
They
Haskell
will sneak
Shelton
in.
must be driving and texting because he he sent me this photo of conference rankings, and they've got the Big 12 ranked number. Who is this? WarrenNolan.com. I'm not sure who this guy is, but he's ranked the conferences. He's got Big 12 at number 1, Big 10 at 2, SEC at 3, Big East at 4, and the ACC at 5.
Well, obviously he's on drugs.
Yeah, apparently this guy is
Who
drinking.
is this guy?
Warren Nolan, whoever this is.
I mean, the ACC is
ACC's
5.
Three
Are
three
you
teams
kidding
in the
me?
top 5. I mean, the top 5 has been the ACC all year, pretty much.
Wow.
And, okay. 336-777-1600 is the number to call if you want to chime in on what we're discussing here. Back to the original question, though. I think 68 might be too many. I mean, 64 was almost the perfect bracket. Like, it lasts 3 weeks. You get, the opening weekend of the NCAA tournament is one of the best weekends to me in sports, especially that opening day, that Thursday, Friday.
See, you said opening day Thursday, Friday, but they had the play-in games Tuesday, Wednesday.
I don't even count them. I don't even count the play-in games.
Now wait a minute.
I never really watch them.
Well,
and it's
Syracuse was in the play-in game, and they went to the Sweet 16.
Isn't there some kind of crazy stat? Actually, I need some help in the production room on this. Isn't there some kind of crazy stat in terms of teams getting out of that Tuesday, Wednesday play-in game and making it to the Elite Eight or the Final Four or something the past couple of years? Because Syracuse did it.
Yeah.
Well, the year Syracuse went to the Final Four, did they start off?
No.
Okay.
No.
But last year, they went a little
Last
bit.
year,
to the
they went to
16.
the Sweet 16.
The year before
Duke.
that, there was a team that got
There
far out of
was.
there.
I can't remember who it was.
Did Loyola Chicago come out of there? They didn't come out of there, did they?
Maybe
See,
not.
that's why
No,
we
no,
have
no,
our
no, they did
prep
not come
staff
out of
in there.
there.
They're working
Yeah.
on it, trying to
Yeah.
figure it out.
No, they were a straight up 16 seed, I believe they were.
I don't even know how you look that up, but it's
Yeah.
like, what's the I guess the play-in games, the record of the play-in game teams?
I kind of worded it. I worded it one way, it didn't really work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you guys are
Yeah,
college
but those-
educated and smart. They'll
But
figure it out.
those play-in games,
Yeah.
yeah, those play-in games go back to what you guys were talking about earlier. It's the money, those dollars that are generated on TV.
Yep, it's all that
The
TV
NCAA is generating a good bit of television revenue on Tuesday and Wednesday.
2 days before the whole
Yeah,
tournament
2 days
starts.
before the
Are
whole
you kidding
tournament
me?
starts. So,
Oh my God.
being with whenever there's dollar signs in the picture, I mean, you can best believe they're not going to retract just because of that.
They could
But
maybe go to 72 if they wanted to, but like I said, I'm happy with it being right now at 68. That might be the limit.
yeah,
of
they don't
what
need to
you
go
can
any
do.
further. Yeah.
Because if they go to 72, the 73rd team
Yeah,
is
it's
still
always
going to
be a
bad,
team.
you know?
So, like, according to this, if they went to 72, it'd be like, it'd be UNC.